What is the future of Silicon Valley going to look like from an employee perspective? You've had some companies, obviously already, Twitter basically saying you can stay and work home forever, for that matter. Yeah. And you've had some layoffs at some well-known companies as well. Is the Valley going to be changed forever?
So that was a recent interview with Jason Calacanis on CNBC. And so today I'm going to be focusing on the future of Silicon Valley with respect to the tech industry and the impact it may or may not have on the future residents there. Now, for the UK listeners out there, you're probably thinking, why am I focusing on Silicon Valley? And the main reason is anyone who is in the tech industry, such changes in the US will inevitably trickle into the UK market. And so for the likes of UK tech companies, we will see a similar pattern to that of the US. So before I start, I just want to talk about my portfolio. So this week, I'm currently up over 1%. So I'm in the green for once in terms of the capital gains. As for the dividends that I've received, at the beginning of every month, I provide a recap on the previous month's earnings. So stay tuned for those. And so I currently have a portfolio value of £7,658. Now, there are some changes taking place on the Trading 212 platform. In the near future, we should see the likes of DRIP, which is Dividend Reinvestment Plan. And this is perfect for dividend-based investors like myself. And I'll be showing you some of the beta features that the Trading 212 team have been working on. So all in all, I'm really happy with how my portfolio is progressing. I haven't gone too crazy with respect to my investments, and that's just because stock prices are increasing, and so I'm slowing down the amount that I purchase every month. But with a portfolio value that is close to £8,000, we are really seeing the power of the dividends that we receive. And that in itself is motivation to continue investing. So I want to take us back to the 1990s to early 2000s. Now, there's a high chance that some of you that are listening were not even born during that period. But at that time, there was a steady increase in users connected to the internet. And they believed that as the technology would become better, then individuals would be working from anywhere. And as a result, some of the urban areas, let's take the likes of London, for instance, they would become less concentrated. And that's just because individuals would be able to work from anywhere. Now, that didn't happen. While the tooling became better and better, there was still a cultural standard where individuals would travel to their work office, they would perform their work duties, and then they would travel home. And we've seen that process continuing up until now. So during the 2000s and ending in 2020, during that 20-year period, there was still a trend where individuals would move to the big cities, and that in turn would push up real estate prices. So with the adoption of the internet, that in itself has played a significant role in pushing up house prices. So let's take ourselves to the Bay Area. And if we look at the likes of San Francisco, there is a housing crisis. But because there's a large pool of tech individuals, the landlords favor those individuals to live in their homes, and in turn they can increase the price of the rent. So we have employees that work in the tech industry that have had to or decided to relocate and then work for some of the high tech companies such as Google, Facebook, etc. And up until recently, that has been the status quo. Now, there's been a really interesting trend, and it's happened from the last few weeks. But we have the likes of Facebook that are becoming more friendly towards remote work. Now, it's quoted that Mark Zuckerberg believes that it's quite the possibility that within the next 5 to 10 years, around 50% of the people could be working remotely. Now, it's somewhat funny because at the moment, more than 50% are working remotely. And so a lot of these big tech companies, they are having a crash course in how to run a company remotely. So if they're able to be successful, and from the recent studies, all the companies that have been working remotely and that are able to do so, they are willing to allow for this remote work culture. Now, there are some downsides to the policy. So first and foremost, you can't live anywhere in the world. If you are working in the US-based office, then you still need to be within a 4-hour drive from the actual office complex. Now, of course, you can extrapolate that case out. So if you work in the London office, then you should be able to work from a set distance. And so you would be free to move to more rural-based areas. Now, the other problem is that if individuals do relocate, then their compensation will be adjusted. So if you work in the likes of Palo Alto and you live there as well, but you decide to move further away, then you're probably looking at a paid decrease. Now, that probably isn't so much of a problem because there could be lower rents, for instance, food prices could be lower. And so even though you may see a net pay decrease, your expenditure could be less. And so you actually make more money, as funny as that sounds. And the other downside, and it's just a policy decision from Facebook, it's that only senior employees will be the first ones to test out the remote work. Now, in the long run, that's not a massive issue. If you have senior engineers that embrace the remote work culture, then employees below will still be able to work in a functional manner. And so I would expect the same benefit would be provided for those employees. Now, in similar fashion, we have the likes of Shopify, which is one of the biggest e-commerce based websites. And they've allowed their employees to work fully remotely for the foreseeable future. Now, of course, Shopify is not in the Bay Area. They are a Canadian-based company. But the likes of Twitter, Facebook, and Square, for instance, they all operate in the Bay Area. And so for employees that no longer have to travel to the office, then those employees can spread around a 4-hour radius. And so house prices should hopefully not be concentrated to a given area. So with the housing crisis in Silicon Valley, in an ideal situation, those prices come down. Now, that ideal situation is somewhat unlikely with the likes of Apple, and that's because, well, all the other tech companies and even Google, for instance, is allowing their employees up until 2021. But the likes of Apple does not want to do that. Now, you have to think that Apple is both a software and a hardware-based company. And that's not too different from Google. They operate in both spaces, but most of their revenue comes from the software side. So with Apple, they're still selling their iPhones, iPads, MacBooks, for instance. And so they need individuals to work within that hardware sector as well. So it's not too shocking that their employees are being asked to return to work, and this is happening already. And as highlighted on the second bullet point, it illustrates how critical hardware is to Apple's business. So that's something that we have to remember. It's only pure software-based companies that are able to enable individuals to work fully remotely. Now, for smaller firms, they have already adopted this remote work culture. I've been working as a remote worker for almost 4 years now, and on and off prior to that. So for me, remote working is nothing new, but it's been very interesting to see a lot of these big tech players allowing individuals to at least have the option to work from home. And the change has come about very quickly as well. So for those that work in the software sector, there is a net benefit, and say 10 to 20 years from now, it's just going to be the status quo to be able to work from where you like. Individuals will be thinking to themselves, why was this never an option to begin with? And there's been numerous studies showing how people's productivity has been either equal to those when they worked in an office environment, or even higher as well. And of course, not everyone is keen to work from home. Maybe they don't have the desired space. Maybe they just want to team up with employees. They'll be free to do that. At least these large tech companies will still provide an office space. It's a win-win situation. It's yet another perk for individuals that work with these big tech companies. And for anyone that works for medium, small based companies, well, they've already been working in that type of environment. And if they haven't been, then this can only give you encouragement to do so. So without a doubt, the Bay Area is going to change significantly. Those changes are visible already. So thanks for watching, everyone. And with that said, I'll catch you in the next one.